G'day guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about how we can honour our mother and father as adults. So let's get right into it. Now, this commandment to honour your father and your mother is a commandment that we all have for the rest of our lives. Now, the way in which we honour our mother and father will look differently depending on how old we are. For example, as a young child, you're generally going to obey whatever it is your parents say, whatever they tell you to do. Perhaps as a young adult, you might be someone who still lives at home, but you have independence. You're free to come and go as you please. But perhaps while you live under your parents' house, you still have some rules to follow. But as an adult who has perhaps flown the nest, you are no longer required to obey your parents. You're no longer required to do what they tell you, but perhaps, we all have an element of responsibility and ways that we should continue to honour our mother and father as adults. Now, I want to look at some more Bible verses. So let's have a look at a few more. So we're looking at Proverbs chapter 30, verse 17, and it says, "The eye that mocks a father, that scorns an aged mother, will be pecked out by the ravens of the valley, will be eaten by the vultures." Proverbs 30, verse 11, "There is a generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother. There is a generation that is clean in its own eyes, yet is not washed from its filthiness." Exodus 21:17, "And he who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death." Exodus 21:15, "And he who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death." Proverbs 20, verse 20, "He who curses his father or his mother, his lamp will go out in the midst of darkness." The word translated curse can mean to treat lightly or with little esteem. So as Christians, we are to honour our father and mother by not mocking them, by not treating them lightly, and by not striking them. In addition, we are to care for them when they're in need, especially as they get to an old age. Now, in Mark chapter 7, verses 9 to 13, it says, "And he was also saying to them, you are good at setting aside the commandment of God in order to keep your tradition. For Moses said, honour your father and your mother, and he who speaks evil of father or mother is to be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or his mother, whatever you might benefit from me is Corban, that is to say, given to God, you no longer leave him to do anything for his father or his mother, thus invalidating the word of God by your tradition, which you have handed down, and you do many things such as that." So here in this verse, Jesus condemns the religious leaders of Israel for teaching that people can dedicate something to God that could have been used to help their parents in their time of need. So it seems to imply that the command to honour your mother and your father means that you have to help them in their time of need, which means if they need food, if they need clothing, if they need shelter, then we are to help them in those times, and we are to be responsible to help them when they are in those times of need. Now, in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 3 to 4, it says, "Honour widows who are widows indeed, but if any widow has children or grandchildren, they must first learn to practice piety in regard to their own family and to make some return to their parents, for this is acceptable in the sight of God." And a few verses later it says, "But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." So this verse clearly teaches that we have a responsibility to take care of our parents, to perhaps even take care of our grandparents when they are in times of need. Now, obviously, you don't have to pay for your parents to live in luxury, but you do need to provide for their needs if they cannot meet these needs themselves. Now, a good example of this is, perhaps Ruth and Naomi. Now, Ruth didn't let Naomi, which is, in this case, it's her mother-in-law. It's not her mother, but it is her mother-in-law. She didn't let Naomi return to Israel on her own. She went with her and she went out into the fields to work so that she could provide for the both of them. Now, this behavior is obviously something that caught the attention of Boaz, and it is this kind of behavior as well that catches the attention of Christ. Now, you might ask yourself, well, how can you honor your mother and your father as they, get into this age group where they're getting older? Perhaps they might not be suitable living on their own anymore. How can you honor them? What are the different ways that you can honor them? Now, perhaps you might be someone who has a spare room in your house that you could, if the opportunity comes up, if they really need a place to stay, if they cannot live and manage to be on their own anymore, then you could offer up a room in your house to take them in, to care for them. Perhaps you have a little granny flat that is attached to the back of your house that could be used to help them as they get older, rather than perhaps putting them in a nursing home. For me personally, I would prefer it myself if my parents came to live with us in their old age, if they could no longer manage to, stay in the house that they're in. My parents live in a two-story house, so as they get older, the stairs may become more and more difficult. They may not be able to, health-wise manage going up and down these stairs every day. It's a reasonably large house. And to be able to offer up a room in my house would be something that I would want to do, rather than putting them in a nursing home. Now, I know that's not something that everybody can do. You might not have the room to offer your family, your parents, but if you are someone that has to perhaps put them in care in a nursing home, then I would say a way you honor that is by visiting them, daily, every second day, weekly, I don't know, depending on how far away you live from each other. So if you choose to put your parents in a home, then certainly a responsibility is that you would need to make sure you see them on a regular basis. I guess for me, I have worked in nursing homes, and I've seen the things that go on, and I just think, nobody would look after my parents the way that I would look after them. I guess it's a bit like if you have a child and you put them in a daycare for a certain amount of hours a day or whatever, then you are letting somebody else really raise your child in one way or the other. And I know for me personally, if I had to put my child in daycare, I know that my child is not going to be looked after the way that I would look after them. And I guess I think like that about my parents as well. If I put them in a home, I know they won't be looked after the same way if they came and lived with me. So, there are different situations, different scenarios. Some people might just feel like their parents are just too hard to handle to live with them. So, the only other option is to look at other alternative accommodations, but again, the responsibility would be you visit them on a regular basis. So definitely it is something that we have to continue to do as we ourselves get older, as well, is to watch out and care for our families, especially our mother and father. Anyway, I do hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please do leave me a comment below. I love to read your comments, and you'll see me again in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.